Alrighty. Let's see. Just make sure that's a going. Yep. Looks like we are. Yep, we are definitely live. Awesome. All right. So let's get introductions out of the way. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Joe's Geek Show, the video series of We Talk Comics, and welcome to a very cool live stream where I have my good pal NERDSCUM with me. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. I'm just glad that ever since, Google decided Hangouts was no longer the place to go for live streams, I was able to come across this very interesting thing called StreamYard, which apparently, according to the top left icon, is still in beta. But, I don't know. Seems to work okay. Seems like a really cool setup. The only thing is there's that watermark on the picture, but hey, nothing we can do about that, unfortunately, unless you pay to get it removed. But so today we are going to be talking about the DC animated movie Batman Hush, which is an adaptation of the Jeph Loeb and Jim Lee made Batman Hush. So same name, comic to movie. It's awesome. So just a general idea of what's going to be going down. So we're just going to go over things like, general feelings on the movie, discuss some changes between the comic and the movie, how we feel about some of those changes, and just, I guess, overall, did the movie in and itself work? So I'm going to pass it over to you, NERDSCUM, since you are the guest. So tell us a little bit, I guess, about what you thought of the movie as like a general idea.
Like as a general idea, or like in its execution?
Just like, what you thought of the movie.
I mean, like in concept, it's cool. Like an animated movie of Batman Hush should be a no-brainer. Like it's one of the most, popular Batman stories of ever. It helps solidify a lot of things that now we think of as being mainstay of Batman, like storytelling and continuity, when in fact they really hadn't been before that. But we kind of assume like the Batman-Catwoman thing, everyone just kind of assumes that that's always been the way the relationship is the way it's always been. But really Hush is really the cementing of that, whereas before that had really just been played around with, so like it's a no-brainer to make this movie. And from that point on, that decision was correct. And from that point on, it feels like most of the decisions afterwards were wrong to some degree. I constantly say that this is not a valid critique of a movie, but I'm going to state it anyway. This movie kind of sucks. Like, don't get me wrong. We'll get into it. Like, there are definitely things in the movie I really like that I think work very well. But I feel that the execution as not only an adaptation of Hush, but also just in terms of the execution of it as its own standalone film, I think there's a lot to be desired.
Oh, I definitely agree there. Yeah, like you said, I mean, there were some things about the movie for me that definitely worked. And some things, that I understand. And then, of course, again, some things that don't work. Because I remember when the trailer for Hush dropped and I knew that this was going to be the next DC animated movie, I just flipped out, just so excited because I love the Batman Hush story, the book. I love the characters, the way it was set up. I mean, that's as close to a perfect Batman story as you can get in a way. Because there was even what was it? I watched a YouTube video. It was on the Sci-Fi Wire, where they had said their claim was that it was actually the best Batman story, just slightly over Court of the Owls. I mean, I don't know if you agree to that, but it was still, it just, for me, it wasn't the fact, it wasn't the point of, Hush being a better story than Court of the Owls. It's just the fact that, it was still such a big story that we talk about it today, that people still talk about it. People still read it. People still love it. So, and as you said, an animated movie was it was a no-brainer. It was something that I knew I was excited about. And pretty much everyone who's a big Batman fan and knows the story was excited about it.
Yeah.
And then the movie came out.
Yeah. Because similarly, I was really excited when I heard the announcement. Because recently we've gotten Gotham by Gaslight, and we've gotten Ninja Batman, and we've got all these movies that are like, whether you like them or not, like they all are very interesting and unique films that do their own thing. And so it felt like when they announced it that like, oh well, yeah, doing Hush as your next movie and doing it more of like a Gotham by Gaslight type thing where you're just telling that story. That's a great idea. And then the trailer dropped and I was like, oh,
they took some liberties.
this is part of their ongoing continuity. This isn't its own thing. And I was like, so immediately then my excitement and expectations were dropped by about 50%. Because I do actually like the current DC animated continuity. I feel better than a lot of people do. Like there's a lot of people who just hate it, and I definitely agree with a lot of their complaints about it, but I still have enjoyed many of the films. Having said that though, it's hard to argue against the like noticeable difference in quality between them doing a movie like Batman Bad Blood versus a movie like Batman Gotham by Gaslight,
Right.
Because there are no restrictions or cuffs. They don't have to like adhere to previous character models. They don't have to try to tie in other characters that never existed in that story to make it work. Mind you, they do all those things in Gotham by Gaslight, but it comes from a creative place of them wanting to do something as opposed to like, well, we're in this continuity, so we have to.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway. Yeah, I wasn't as excited, I don't think, as a lot of folks when the trailer came out, but I was still hoping, like, deep down inside, I was like, yeah, but it's Batman Hush, so they're going to do it right?
And then once again, the movie came out. Yeah, I mean, as far as the, the whole New 52 style of continuity, I mean, yeah, I actually really liked it. From the time it kicked off back with Justice League War, I was on board. And even some of the movies that get, a lot more criticism, like Batman Bad Blood, Teen Titans Judas Contract and stuff, to a degree, I still really like those movies because there is enough there to like about those movies that I think sort of make up for, what some would consider the disappointment of a direct adaptation where they try to, like Gotham by Gaslight, do a more like, where they try to copy over the style and just try to convert it into animation, because I mean, when you look at movies like, again, Gotham by Gaslight, you got The Dark Knight Returns. I'm trying to think of another one that was. We'll stick with like those two.
Like a straight up adaptation.
Yeah, like straight up adaptations and stuff like that.
Under Red Hood.
Oh, Under the Red Hood is another very good one where they just try to get the art style as close as they can while still, changing enough of it so that it works for animation. And those were very good. Those were very good adaptations. Those were very good movies overall. So I was kind of half expecting upon announcement for them to take, such a revered story like Hush and say, okay, well, obviously we're not going to get the Jim Lee style down 100%, but we can at least try to get as close as we can while still converting it into animation. And, I don't know why they decided to adapt it into their New 52 style, because that's where, a lot of the changes came to, story elements, characters, and really like, a change to the ending, which almost changes the entire story.
Yeah. And we can definitely elaborate on the ending a little bit more because
we'll get it. Oh yeah, we're definitely going to get into it. But... So for now, let's go into some of the maybe some of the comparisons and changes between the comic and the movie, and like maybe how we felt about that. Like, for example, one of the first notable differences, obviously, was that instead of in the comic book where Batman encounters Killer Croc, in the movie he encounters Bane instead. So what was your take on that?
Wow. Just wow. Now, again, since we're talking about the comparison, I will state for the record that while I love Jim Lee's art, I hate the way he draws Killer Croc.
Really?
Yeah, because
I kind of like that giant, like monster gator style.
I mean, like Killer Croc to me is a guy with a skin disease. He's not a lizard man. You know, for me, that's the lizard, Kirk Connors, or like a character like that. So whenever they draw him with like the prolonged snout and all that kind of stuff, like doesn't work for me. But having said that, Killer Croc is a perfect entry level character for the book. And, you know, he's not overly intelligent. You know, he's mostly muscle. He's a character that everybody loves, but in truth, there's not a lot of depth to him. There's not a lot of great stories with him that you can tell. So in a book where we're going to throw all of Batman's most popular villains at you for the most part, like he's a good starting point where he's like a legitimate threat. Like it does all the things it needs to do. And none of those things work when it's Bane.
Nope.
Like obviously Bane is a very popular character within Batman's rogues gallery, and they want to get him in the movie somewhere. My biggest issue with it, and we talked about this a little bit before the live stream, I hate every movie version of Bane almost.
Yeah.
And this one's included.
Goes without saying.
Like, mind you, in this one, he is being mind controlled. But the problem with that is, like, Bane is supposed to be the equal to Batman in terms of, like, mental will and intelligence, you know? Like,
right.
The whole idea behind Bane in the comics is he's the reverse side of Bruce, like so many other Batman villains. It's like, you know, except where Bruce grew up in luxury and trained himself into this weapon, Bane grew up in the dank darkness of, like, a prison and trained himself to be mentally and physically to be this weapon. So right off the bat, I have issue with Poison Ivy taking control of Bane's mind. It's like that really diminishes Bane as a character and as a threat in any other story he's in. Mind you, we're at the point now where in any story Bane's in, Batman just cuts his Venom line and that's the end of it. But
yeah,
again, that's something that mostly happens when you see Bane in the comics. That's not the way it goes, you know? That's only a thing for TV and movies. And it's this weird thing that this movie insists on perpetuating, the idea that only happens, and mind you, Batman the Animated Series did a great job with Bane. He was awesome in that show. But almost every other version of Bane I've seen ends up being a freaking lackey to some hot chick.
Yeah.
Even like in Dark Knight Rises, where they build him up to be this big badass who's like behind this takeover of Gotham and has this intricate plan. Nope. In that one, he didn't even grow up in the prison. That was Talia al Ghul. Fuck you. Like, what the hell, guys? Like,
yeah, that's definitely one thing. Yeah, definitely about Bane. Like, I remember the first time that I had ever seen Bane in live action to screen, you know, was of course Batman and Robin 1997. And when I'm sitting there and I watched him on screen, and then I totally like, I remember the animated series version. I was just like, one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
and then Poison Ivy in that movie said that one line that made me just go, okay, I see the real reason what's going on here. When she says every Poison Ivy action figure comes complete with him.
Yep.
And I was just like, yep, because they had those double packs for the Batman and Robin one.
What's crazy too is like the period from which Joel Schumacher is pulling for those comics, which that's a whole nother video in of itself, where I really dislike Batman and Robin, but it's the most comic book accurate Batman and Robin movie or Batman movie we've ever gotten. It's just from a period of comics that no one wants a movie of. But in that period of comics, Poison Ivy had like a big Groot-like henchman who had no arms most of the time. And like you found out that it used to be her lover who she had turned into a plant man. And like, so there's a character that literally could have served the function of Bane, but again, doesn't have the name brand, like notoriety of Bane. And of course, like that movie came out in 1998, like, you know, the whole Nightfall thing had only happened, you know, like a few years earlier at that point, like 5 or 6 years earlier. Like Bane was a big fucking deal. So they want Bane in their movie, just like now they want Bane in their movie. And so the Poison Ivy Bane connection, how do you even put that in your movie without knowing people will associate it with Batman and Robin?
Yeah, that's another good point that like clearly, and one of the reasons why I brought it up too, because when I saw that Bane was being controlled by Poison Ivy, that's exactly where my mind was going. Was like, oh my god, are they actually pulling from Batman and Robin? Like that's something that definitely makes me just kind of like, oh my gosh, is it going to be like Batman v Superman all over again? When you really strip it down, it's Superman for the Quest for Peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but still, yeah, man. I mean, getting rid of Killer Croc was, I kind of felt like, yeah, that was definitely a mistake. He was, like you said, he was definitely a better entry level character to start the story with. And even what is it, real Dr. Vankman here in the comments even says, I hate Bane. Croc is underappreciated. And yeah, I mean, in this version of the story, I do not like Bane. Because we never really get to he just his functionality to the story, I felt like it didn't work too well.
Yeah. And yeah, like I feel like Killer Croc is a very underutilized character. There's a lot of things you could do with Killer Croc as a character that no one's ever really done. But I also feel that, like, now, especially that we're in the, well, I don't know actually now that after Rebirth and everything where Killer Croc stands, but I know that, like, in New 52, he was a lizard man. He wasn't the guy with a skin disease. And right. The truth is, once you make him that version of the character, you limit your storytelling possibilities to a large degree. Like, at that point, you're stuck telling every other, Kurt Connors or like Man-Bat, like every other, like, or every other just like, I was a dude who got turned into a lizard or like into a big monster. Whereas like the other version is just laden with so much more pathos and so much more storytelling ability. And there's just no one's explored it real well in about 20 years. So yeah, like I really like Killer Croc and I definitely think he deserves more screen time and page count. But Bane, man.
Yeah. Or maybe Killer Croc is just protected at the moment because of, his involvement in the Suicide Squad live action movie.
Maybe.
Maybe they're just like, well, we don't want an animated version of Killer Croc like outshining our cinematic masterpiece version of Killer Croc.
Right. I don't think he's coming back for the next movie anyway, though.
I honestly have no idea in terms of
which I do have to say, like, out of all the versions of Killer Croc, the one from Suicide Squad is my least favorite.
Why? Just because he's beautiful?
No, because he's really not. No, like the makeup when they're using it is really good, but like he's just wearing a fucking jacket for most of the movie. Like he serves no function in the film. And again, he doesn't look like Killer Croc. Like he looks like the lizard. And it's
which
so
is what they were. Yeah, well, you could tell it's what they were going for.
Yeah, like he looked more like the lizard from Amazing Spider-Man, in which they were where they were doing the lizard, but clearly someone saw a picture of Killer Croc from like the 90s and was like, that's what we're going to do instead. It's this weird thing. So yeah, like, I don't know. But yeah, it should have been Killer Croc. Bane sucks.
Definitely should have been Killer Croc. And we got a few more in the chat. So we got, we have Jeff Brosamer. Hey, good morning. How you doing, man? Eric Breen, who's talking about StreamYard. It's so simple. Even I figured out how to use it. Hey, that's always good. Approach the Nerd. Hey, Joe, haven't had a chance to catch Hush. Seems like you aren't happy with it. Oh, yeah, we're definitely going to be getting into that a little more detail as this video goes on. By the way, if you haven't checked out Approach the Nerd's channel, go ahead, give her a look. She makes some really killer videos on comic books, and I had a long talk with her when we first started chatting about Power Rangers and Super Sentai. Very knowledgeable. Actually, did voice work for Funimation.
Right on.
So very good stuff there. And all right, but yeah, back on topic. So we can definitely agree, Killer Croc 110% should have been, the entry level villain. That's a change that did not need to occur. So another change that, one of the other changes that was next noticeable was right away for me was trying to think which one I want to kind of dig at next. That's a tough one because there's just so many changes to this movie. Well, okay, here I'll talk about a change that I actually understand. one that I can understand, and that is the removal of Crypto the Superdog from the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one I could totally see, because like with the way that the movie is set up and the tone that they're going for in the comic books can get a little more wacky, and it works. And when Crypto goes busting through the door and stuff to track down Poison Ivy, it was hilarious. Like, I thought it was absolutely funny. It worked for the comic book, but I can see why they removed it for the movie itself. Even though it would have been funny, it definitely would. I think it probably would have broken up the movie in a way that would have probably made it even more obvious with the other glaring problems.
Although it is bizarre, because I don't know if you noticed, but this movie is way more quippy than a lot of the movies in the current DC animated universe. Like, they definitely attempted with this movie to inject more humor where there was never humor before. And so it's weird because, yeah, it's like they removed a lot of elements from the actual book that were really funny and tried to replace it with like witty banter. So that's weird. But no, I do get what you're saying though. Crypto, also like the scene with Crypto, like if you're making a movie, like that's screen time that you could theoretically be using on something else that's more important. I don't think they do use that screen time on something more important. But it is weird. It's I get why they made the change, but with the other kind of like changes in tone they made to characters and story, it seems almost arbitrary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, like you're saying, it's not a bad change. Like, it's one of those things that I would state as like, oh no, that makes sense, like you said. But it makes sense in context of like a logical person making a movie, but in context of like the cluster fuck that is this movie, it's like it almost makes it more confusing. It's like, no, because clearly someone on staff knew what they were doing. And then there are clearly a bunch of other people who are like, yeah, whatever, we'll do this. It's weird. It's
yeah.
weird.
Oh, definitely. And then actually, real Dr. Beckman just says, okay, yeah, this would actually be a pretty good talking point. So can we talk about Tara Strong being in the movie, but not voicing Harley Quinn?
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I thought that, as soon as you brought that up, I hadn't thought about it for a second, but yeah, now that I think about it, that is weird because Tara Strong, well, did voice Harley Quinn and Batgirl, and very good voice actress.
And I don't know if this is actually the case, but I mean, like Tara Strong's great as Harley Quinn, but she is a voice actress who's done lots of stuff, and at the same time, right now, because of that damn streaming show of Harley Quinn, they might be contractually obligated to have every animated Harley Quinn that appears be voiced by that actress.
Yeah, well, because I believe in the animated Harley Quinn show, the voice actress for Harley Quinn is what's her name from Big Bang Theory? Yeah, but
not the one who voiced her in Harley Quinn Batman, but the other one from Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, because I hear it's
like Kelly Potato Shack or something like that.
Yeah, but apparently in this movie, it's not even that actress. It's an actress named Hynden Walk.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't care enough to check.
Yeah, I just decided to look it up. But yeah, like I mean, but yeah, it is kind of weird though to get Tara Strong on board and then not have her do Harley Quinn, because I mean I think she has easily, like Mark Hamill's Joker, probably the most recognizable Harley Quinn voice of any other animated version of that character. I mean, there are actresses who can get close to it. Kaylee Cuoco. That's the name of that actress.
Not Kelly. Kaylee
Cuoco. Good God.
That's a name.
Yeah.
But yeah, and actually, whenever we get a little bit further down the list too, I'm definitely going to be talking about some more of the voice acting / casting / sound design of the movie. But I will say that like whoever they had playing Harley did a serviceable job because like
It
Harley,
worked. I mean,
yeah,
the pitch and the tone, it was okay. It worked for me. Like, you know, I mean, I could tell it wasn't Tara Strong, but at the same time, I wasn't like, you know, that's not Tara Strong, you know.
yeah, and it is weird because like Harley's not in the movie enough that it can't be like it was a scheduling conflict where
Right.
like, oh well, like she's a main character and Tara Strong doesn't have enough time in her schedule to like voice a whole movie. It's like it Harley Quinn, while like I love seeing her in the movie and I think her stuff works great, like it's a very small role. So it is
Mhm.
peculiar that they wouldn't just get her to do it while she's there, like because you know, you as a voice actor, you often will play more than one role in like a movie or a TV show or something, you know.
Mhm.
The only other thing I can think of is like maybe like she's done with Harley Quinn, you know, like because you know like there's plenty of actors both in live action and voice acting who after a certain amount of time is just like yeah like but like I kind of want to do other things and I'm tired of people calling me Harley Quinn, you know, which you know like Harley Quinn's a fun character and like I think everybody would love to play her as an actress, you know, whether it be voice or live action, but like you know maybe she's just got other stuff she wants to do and doesn't necessarily want to be Harley Quinn anymore. I don't know.
And that's a
uh,
very fair point. You know, one could see that. You know, if you play a character long enough, eventually you're just kind of like, I guess I'm kind of done.
yeah,
You know, and then sometimes you're Kevin Conroy, where you say I'm done, but then occasionally
right,
come back, especially for an upcoming Infinity Crisis, or
yeah,
Crisis on Infinite Earths, like live action Kevin Conroy playing freaking Bruce Wayne.
right,
Yes, please sign me up. I am ready for that.
yeah,
That's
but you
gonna be
know,
that's a dream come true for me. I'm saying.
yeah. And you know, it might also just be a matter of like, you know, they didn't want to use Tara Strong because she's the voice of Harley in a different continuity, unless she voiced Harley in the Assault on Arkham movie, which is in this continuity. No, it's
It,
not. It's in
no,
its
it's
own
not.
continuity.
That's in the video game
No, no, no.
continuity.
Yeah, it's in its own continuity. The one I'm thinking of is the other Suicide Squad, Hell to Pay.
Well,
Which is
Hell to Pay's that one's in the what was it? The Flashpoint
oh, but
continuity.
that's the thing. Remember, the Flashpoint movie is what sets up this continuity in animation. Because at the end of that movie, when Flash gets back, him and Batman are in their new 52 costumes. And
Yeah,
the
but the
next movie
animation
we
style
got is
doesn't
Justice
match, and
League
it's
War.
still yeah, but the animation style doesn't match.
No, but like when they come back, it does though.
But in Hell to Pay, though, I would say the animation style matches the Flashpoint animation
It's
closer.
closer to that, but they reference other things in that movie that are within this continuity.
I'll have to
Uh,
watch it. I have to watch it again
so yeah,
because,
it's
like, nothing in Hell to Pay made me even remotely think about the New 52 continuity. But I'll watch it again. Maybe I missed it, or just like it's been a while
yeah.
since I've seen it.
Well, and
But
like but even like in terms of the continuity, whenever the creators state like where that timeline starts, they always started at Flashpoint. Because just like in the comics, they use Flashpoint in their animation as like a signal to people that it's something new and different now. Like it was like they, in mind when they made the movie, they wanted to use it as a visual transition into this next phase of their continuity. So and because it's intrinsically linked to that's why I say that it's connected. Uh,
okay.
but anyway, I can't remember who voiced Harley in that movie either. But you never know. Maybe they just want to have one Harley within each continuity voicing it for consistency's sake.
That's fair
Um,
enough. That could very well be a good. I'd say a good point to follow up. So okay, here's the next one. Tell me whether you think it's inconsequential or not, or what your thoughts are on it. The removal of Huntress and changing Oracle back into Batgirl.
um, I feel like in some ways it definitely makes sense in terms of an adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Like it streamlines your characters, so you reduce your number of characters, which makes it easier to tell your story. More people are aware of Batgirl than are aware of Huntress, so if you're not wanting to have to explain who a character is, and because in a movie like this you have tons of characters that you have to introduce, like having a character show up who can serve similar functions, who people already know, it makes sense. Having said that, like, I think it, and I think it works fine for the story they're telling for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. But what I will say is that in doing so, you rob potentially introducing Huntress to a new audience. You also, again, I've been very vocal. I'm on record as saying that Barbara Gordon should have never been put back into Batgirl. Barbara
Right.
Gordon should have been Oracle. Uh, Oracle was one of the best things that happened to that character.
Oh,
And
I
while she
agree.
certainly had fun stories since they made her Batgirl again, nothing has ever been as interesting or as impactful or like as emotionally charged as her being Oracle. Like there's something to be said about Barbara Gordon as Oracle, who can still, while in a wheelchair, use a scream-a-sticks and go head to head with Dick Grayson. That
Yeah.
you can never compare to anything Batgirl can do. There's nothing that she can do as Batgirl that will say as much about her as a strong character as anything she did as Oracle. Especially when after her we had other characters who were much better Batgirls. But that again, that's opinion. In my opinion,
Oh, it's a very fair point too. I mean, there's something about the, like you said, there's just something about the Oracle character where it's, you have this character who suffered a very big tragedy, but found a way to bounce back from it and become one of, one of the most pinnacle points inside of the Bat family, and just serving as the eyes and ears of an entire city.
Well, and not only that, like at one point, like she is not just Oracle for the Bat family, like she does it for the entire superhero community.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah.
she was an important and integral part of the DC universe and how it operated. And now she's Batgirl and she punches bad guys and takes selfies. And like that's fine. But like, and again, also I'm a little bit biased. Again, I grew up with a mother who was disabled, who was in a
Right.
wheelchair, and it was like, and again, like I don't want to get like super like, preachy or like, social issue here, but like as a kid growing up, it was nice to have a strong and badass character in a wheelchair. Like it
Hmm.
definitely had a positive effect on like, because again, like my mom was a person who, while she couldn't do everything for herself, she wasn't Barbara Gordon, she could do a lot more than people gave her credit for or would assume she could. So it was a nice form of representation that, which after removing her as Oracle, like there, that character or a version of that form of representation does not exist in DC Comics anymore.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, because there's definitely been even as what is it, real Dr. Venkman sort of pointed out, is he believes one of the reasons they erased Huntress from the story was just to shove Barbara Gordon down our throats, because there has been a big push in DC for
Mm-hmm.
Batgirl as of late. Actually, well, probably the last few years, where they just been really kind of like, Batgirl, Batgirl, Batgirl.
Yeah, they're
And
trying to make it a thing very, very hard.
very much so. And I even remember back in at the very end of Batman Bad Blood, the post-credit scene or whatever, it was the introduction of Batgirl swinging off into, Gotham prior
Yep.
to, like, this is before she started working with Batman, indicating that she was maybe going to get her own spin-off movie of her, meeting Batman and stuff like that. But of course, we never saw anything of that. And then she's just suddenly working with Batman in this film, which is definitely one of the things about the New 52 continuity that I sometimes don't care for too much, is because they try to set up the continuity. They try to, follow everything in a cohesive manner. But then at other points, they just make certain decisions where it's kind of like, well, I felt like I just missed a big chunk of story here.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things back with what was it, The Death of Superman. As much as I love that movie, I thought that was a great film right there. Having missed out on the breakup between Wonder Woman and Superman, with him and Lois getting together,
Yeah.
I kind of felt like I missed something there. And then again with Batgirl here, yeah, I definitely feel like I missed out on some kind of story that was supposed to be expanded upon, but then it never was. I mean, outside of there just being like, little hints in there about certain films.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we got
but
Batwoman established before we got Batgirl.
Yeah. We definitely did. But I mean, overall, with just, am I did would I have preferred Huntress in the movie? Absolutely. I would have preferred a more an almost exactly direct adaptation. But for their new 52, animated universe that they have set up, I can see again why they wanted to put in that character. Uh, but again, every time I see it, it's just it's kind of weird. And then there's the change between Huntress and Batgirl is just something that's definitely creeped out throughout the entire movie. Like around the Batman Hush era, we know that the CEO of LexCorp was Talia al Ghul, but in the movie, it's Lex Luthor again, who is also now a member of the Justice League.
Yes.
Which is another story element within this continuity they did not set up. It was just kind of like, don't forget, I'm a member of the Justice League now, and I'm just like, wait, what?
Well, because at the in the Reign of Superman, they used that as his intro into being a member of the Justice League instead of doing like Forever Evil, which, like, by the way, whose brain fart was that to not do Forever Evil as an animated movie?
Fact, dude. Fact. Forever Evil would have been a phenomenal movie, especially if you wanted to segue Lex Luthor into being a member of the Justice League, which
and you can do it in this continuity and it'll make sense, god damn it.
Yes, because it's actually a new 52 era book.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. Hey, it is what it is half the time. But yeah, I just thought that was a really, again, it was one of those choices where it was odd, but again, I could see why they made it because it's in their new 52 continuity.
Yeah. No, but it's like so many changes in this where you're like, on the surface, it's like, okay, on the face of it, that's not a bad idea. Mm-hmm. But then it's like when they handed that idea off to someone to execute it, that person had no idea what they were doing. It's so bizarre. Good intentions, but nope.
The execution can always be something else. Now, what did you think about, let's say, how they handled the relationship dynamic between Batman and Catwoman within the movie versus the comic book? Because I will say in the movie, because in the movie we did get a few extra minutes of screen time with Batman and Selina Kyle, before we get to that main part of the story where the book actually begins with the whole Bane, aka, well, I should say Killer Croc story with the kidnapping and the money heist and stuff like that. Because instead we get the introduction of Bruce Wayne going to a party, and that's where we also get to meet Selina Kyle, Thomas Elliott, and we get to see Thomas Elliott. Yeah, you know where that's going already, bro. But and I thought that the banter between Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne was very good. I thought that was a good introduction to their relationship. And handled, I will say that to some degree, I think the relationship was handled a little better in the movie.
Well, yeah, okay, and this actually goes to like probably the biggest thing in terms of writing, or like in terms of like changes in the movie. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is that in general, I would say the main thing they changed is that the book was well written and the movie isn't. Mm-hmm. But again, the Selina Kyle stuff, one of the main reasons why all the Catwoman stuff works so well in the movie is because the book Hush is about this mystery.
Right.
And then as that's going on, the B plot is the Batman-Catwoman relationship. Mm-hmm. In the Hush movie, the Catwoman-Batman relationship is the A plot, and the mystery is the B plot.
Right.
Because right now, the Batman-Catwoman thing is very prolific in the comics. So that's what we've got to push, because that's what everybody's like hyped about right now. Like that's the story that's going on. And we've seen it time and time again where there are little things that they will always change in these movies to reflect what's going on in like the popular zeitgeist at the moment. Right. And keep in mind, like right now, no one really gives a crap about Batman and Catwoman as much as they did, let's say, a year and a half ago when this movie was going into production. Mm-hmm. So, so I do think that the Batman Catwoman stuff is handled pretty well in the movie, but they also intrinsically change the character of Catwoman and Batman from the way they were in the book to reflect the continuity they're in and the way that they are in comics at the time that this is being produced. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it was handled pretty well, but it also felt very Tom King-y and was very distracting. It felt more like Tom King's Batman and Catwoman than Jim Lee's Batman and Catwoman.
I don't know. I didn't really get that feeling from the book, like, because like I said, I think that the added scenes with them in the beginning really helped kind of start the story out. But there were definitely changes to Catwoman's part of the story, which I thought was kind of interesting. And to a degree, I'm it's one of those things where I'm wondering, okay, why change something like that? Because I will say that the animated Catwoman in the movie seems to be just a little more cutthroat, a little more bloodthirsty, if you will, who's okay with killing or letting people die. Whereas, like, say for example, you go into the comic go to the scene where Batman is beating down the Joker, right? He wants to kill the Joker because he thinks, okay, he killed Thomas Elliot, killed my best friend there. And it's Catwoman, not Jim Gordon, as opposed to the movie that stops Batman from killing him, versus the animated one where Batman is just so obsessed with, like, saving everybody that Catwoman kind of questions, well, why? And I thought that was oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's actually kind of one of the main things I was thinking of when I was like, it feels more like Tom King's Catwoman than it does Jim Lee's Catwoman. Also, though, and this is, I'm sorry, like, this is kind of, no, we'll get back to that later when we talk about our very least favorite scenes in the movie. But
okay,
but no, it's fair. Like, they handle her well enough, but I think it's one of those things where I think it's done well enough, but it's not Hush Catwoman and it's not my Catwoman. So it's never as good as, like, the actors handled the dialogue that was written for them, and their scenes were some of the better written scenes in the movie. I just didn't feel it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that.
I had no connection to it. In the way that, like, just, I didn't get a chance to reread the entire book of Hush before doing this video, but I've read it like 3 or 4 times. So I just, like, flipped through it. And there are certain scenes in that book where just, like, within just, like, maybe like 3 or 4 panels, the dialogue between Catwoman and Batman really cements this kind of emotional connection to them as a couple. That I feel that this movie tries really hard to replicate in places, but never quite gets it to feel as pure as it does in the book.
Oh yeah, like, that's one thing I can say is that Batman definitely, I'd say in Hush, feels a lot more raw, in terms of, like, his emotion and, like, how he treats, Catwoman, his partners and stuff like that. Because I mean, there were a few scenes in the Hush comic book where he's actually, like, I mean, he really grabs, like, Catwoman by the wrist or something, squeezes. She makes a comment like, like, you're hurting me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which we never see out of him in the movie.
No. Because, again, like, the whole point of Batman Bad Blood was supposed to be, like, Batman coming to terms with, like, the idea of family and this whole thing. So you can't really have that Batman, like, who's that kind of aggressive and firm and kind of dickheadish, but also because they're focusing more on the Batman Catwoman love story, like, you need Batman to be a slightly softer character for that to be your main story. Like, when you're doing the hard-boiled, like, the epic detective mystery, Batman can be a dick, and then, like, the love story being the B plot, like, that can work. But if it's your A plot, you really have to focus more on it, and therefore Batman has to be a more emotionally open and vulnerable character to facilitate that story. So yeah, like I was saying, like, by making it the A plot instead of the B plot, it fundamentally not only changes the story of the movie, but even the way that the characters have to behave within that story.
Yeah,
so that's weird. Like, it's one of the, like, even though it doesn't actually seem like that big a change, it's actually one of the biggest changes they made.
Oh yeah, and it was definitely one that did not go unnoticed.
Yeah. And again, like it's so bizarre. So many of these choices are like, again, like a movie about Catwoman and Batman, like that, and that's the thing about all these little changes. Like, if you were to do a movie that was called, let's just say it's called Batman and Catwoman, like Gotham Under Siege or Gotham Crumbles or anything, and you gave us this movie, we would clearly go, oh, well, this is heavily influenced by Hush, but it's not Hush.
Right.
Whereas in this movie, they're like, nope, this is Hush. And we watch the opening scene and we go, no?
That's different?
Yeah.
It's changed?
Yeah, you know, and like,
yeah.
One of the changes, like, or one of the things I keep seeing people give a lot of credit to the movie for, is putting Batman back in the classic costume, which is definitely another one of those things that's like, that's a great idea. You should have done that a long time ago. Superman's in a more traditional suit over in, like, you know, whenever he comes back from the dead and then that movie and all that stuff. So, like, yeah, it's time that we start transitioning back. But what I will say is this animation style and the character designs make that classic suit look like garbage.
Yes, which is definitely one of the points of contention that, you know, I have with the movie, and we've discussed this before too, prior to going live, is that the animation style with this particular story, for the most part, it doesn't translate well with the kind of story that Hush is. And yeah, it would have been much better if they tried to go with the Jim Lee style and just try to animate that.
Yeah, or at least, like, you know, because like Dark Knight Returns doesn't look like Frank Miller's book, but the models are similar enough. Like, they still have that same blocky shape, you know, and like you still have like the high contrast. Like, there's enough visual cues to invoke the same kind of base feeling of the book without actually doing that style. And yeah, same like we were talking about, like with Public Enemies, they do a similar thing where like it's not the same style, but it's clearly influenced by it. Whereas in this, there's really no attempt. Like, I don't even think they redesigned any of like the villainous characters to be more like the comic, from what I remember.
Right.
I don't think so. I think they just used the models they already had. Like, I think, but I could be wrong in that. You know, I could be wrong. I could be missing something. But anyway,
I think you're pretty spot on with that one. Hey, just hold on a quick second. I got a baby that just got up.
Yeah, no worries. So anyway, guys, while he's going over there, just one of the other things that I guess I'll go into a little bit here is, so yeah, like we're talking about like the animation and like the kind of faults in the animation. Specifically, I want to mention that we talked about the opening scene with Bane a lot. There's a lot of problems in that opening sequence right there, like the opening fight with Bane and everything. And one of the most like horrific animation moments happens in that scene. And again, obviously we got spoilers to this whole video, so saying it now is pointless, but spoilers. Batman beats Bane. Go figure. In the same way he always beats Bane, in the way that makes Bane seem like a non-threat. And then, like, Bane has kidnapped a little boy for money, and Batman, you know, the little boy gets to go. And there's a shot of the little boy, like, running to leave, where it's, like, a close-up on him. And it's clear that what they did is they took a still frame and then just animated his arm moving and blurred the background behind him. It's, like, one of the cheapest things. Hey, look, there's a baby. It's one of the cheapest things that I've ever seen in one of these movies. It was just absolutely atrocious. It was, and it's in that opening Bane scene. The little boy, like, he runs over and kicks Bane, and when they do the close-up, it's like the worst animation that's ever been in one of these. It looked like an old film, like an old school, like, Filmation or something, where it's like, it's literally a still image where they just digitally manipulated his arm to make it look like he's running, because it's like a close-up and they blur the background. And mind you, it's only a few seconds, but it looks like garbage, and it's in the first 2 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you just said, but I'll agree with it.
Oh, I was just
No.
talking about like there's this. We're talking about like the animation, and there's like this one moment in after the fight with Bane where like they show the little boy as he's about to run out of the room, and then he turns around and goes and kicks Bane. Like in the
Oh.
close up of him running across the room, it's so bad.
Oh
Like,
yeah. I thought the scene that was a scene that definitely looked a little off.
well, the whole scene does, but when they punch into the close up of him running, it's almost as if they forgot to animate him running away from Batman,
Mm-hmm.
and so that in between when he leaves Batman and then he stops and turns around, there's a close up that happens for like 3 seconds. Not even 3 seconds. It's like a second and a half, but it's just like a close up of his head and his arm doing this and the background moving behind him. And it's just such garbage. And it's so early in the movie. You're just like, between that and them making it Bane and it being in like the New 52, like within that one scene, you're kind of like, well, I guess I know what kind of movie I'm in for.
Yep, pretty much. And that's the point of the movie where I was just like, could this actually suck? But all right, well, I think we've kind of rattled on long enough about it. Let's get to the meat of this argument, and that is the changing of the character Hush for this movie. So, if you haven't seen Batman Hush or read the comic book, could be a bit of a spoiler. Could be a bit of a spoiler. Yeah, it's about. So, yeah. Do you want to start with this one?
Sure. Why not? So essentially they tried to pull what they pulled in Gotham by Gaslight, which worked very well in Gotham by Gaslight. Because here's the thing, both Gotham by Gaslight and Hush, from a writing standpoint, the weakest parts of the story are the reveal of who's behind it all. Like the twist. That's the weakest part. In Gotham by Gaslight, it's weak because you see it coming a mile away, that it's his uncle in the book, so changing it in the movie works really, really well. In Hush, obviously, Hush is Thomas Elliot, the character who's created and retconned as an important part of Bruce's history in the story. So in the book, it's obviously Hush. So again, it makes sense that you would kind of want to change it. But the problem is, like, once you start pulling that thread of how everything is connected, your whole narrative structure falls apart. And beyond that, basically they were like, well, the whole thing in the book with the Riddler was stupid. Where, like, it turns out that the Riddler's behind it all, and he's the one who tricked it or got everyone to do everything because, like, why did Clayface help? Because it was the performance of a lifetime, you know? And why did the Joker help? Because, like, he loved the joke and stuff like that. Like, it's silly and, like, it's the weakest part of the story. So they're like, well, why don't we just then make Riddler a badass? He's the one who's really behind it all. Let's make him Hush.
Yeah.
Which, on one hand, I said earlier, if this wasn't Hush and it was just another story and they were introducing a new villain and that turned out to be Riddler, I would kind of go with it. Because again, by the time you get to the end of the movie, Riddler has been in a Lazarus pit, so he is freaking crazy, more so than usual, and it gives a reason why he could be a physical threat to Batman.
Right.
And the fight between him and Batman is legitimately pretty cool at the end. So from that respect, there are ways it could have worked, but not in this movie. And not the way they did it. And like, if you're not going to make Thomas Elliot Hush, then you should just not have Thomas Elliot in the movie. The same way that in Gotham and Gaslight, Bruce's uncle is like nowhere to be found.
Yeah, non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even beyond, if you wanted to make it someone from Batman's Rogues Gallery, I get why they use Riddler, but because it's in the book. But like, if you're going to throw away the book anyway and do your own thing, there are other characters that would have made more sense. You know, like Harvey Dent.
Yeah, who was actually one of the red herrings for Hush in the comic book, because the first time the Hush-looking character takes off his bandages to the Joker, it's Harvey Dent reconstructed, you know?
Yep, and it plays on that whole thing from The Dark Knight Returns. And again, like, the whole idea of like him getting fixed and then like the full bandages over his face, like it plays on those visual like archetypes from that story, like those visual cues. So it really like in the book embeds these other feelings. It's very clever the way that it's done. And also it's one of those things where like it could have worked because in theory, Harvey was friends with Bruce.
Yes.
And he's been fighting Batman long enough. He wouldn't even need a Lazarus pit to figure out, like, what if Harvey figured out that Bruce was Batman and had known for years, and then Two-Face found out too?
Yeah.
And that dichotomy, like almost how in the cartoon it creates the Judge as a third personality of Harvey Dent, like Hush could have been the two conflicting sides of Harvey and Two-Face, like going to war with each other, manifesting as another character who could actually go after Batman with that knowledge. You know, there are so many more interesting concepts that could be done with making someone else Hush, and they just went with like the simplest, most obvious thing that you could do based on the original text of the book. And I think it fails horribly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The minute that it was revealed to be the Riddler, and like you, yeah, I thought at that point, why was Thomas Elliot even in the movie? And then also, like, I mean, if there was a way, if they were gonna do it, I think they could have done it a bit smarter. Made the reveal like actually feel like it's earned, because in this one it just feels like a change for change's sake.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like it's trying to improve on the original story or anything like that. And then also, like, when you look back at the Thomas Elliot scenes, like after Bruce's surgery and Thomas gets done talking with Bruce, Thomas walks out of the room and they kind of pan in on his face a little bit as if it was as if it was nefarious.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and I'm in my mind, it's like jumping out like, okay, yeah. I mean, in this version, it's like, okay, I already know he's supposed to be Hush, so I don't know why they're trying to be so obvious with it,
Yeah, like it's almost as if like they still felt the need to set him up as a red herring, even though everybody thinks he's going to be Hush anyway. So, and you spend the real issue with it is like if he's not Hush, then every scene that he's in the movie is just wasting time.
Yes, that is exactly true. Because by the time he exited the story, from the time he got, he was shot, and I'm just like, oh well, obviously, okay, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake, and then he just never comes back in the story, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
he's actually dead, and I'm just sitting there thinking about like, wait, what about all that backstory that Thomas Elliot has as a character? Because he is, one of the most interesting Batman villains, because when you go into the psychology of Thomas Elliot, he was Bruce's childhood friend who pretty much killed his own parents, except for, Thomas Wayne saved his mom's life, which he got really mad at Thomas Wayne for because he wanted to inherit his family's fortune.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what happened to all of that? That was such a big part of the story. Even if you have Riddler as the man behind the curtain with everything of their shared hatred for Batman and Bruce Wayne, and all that stuff.
Yeah. And
to really just ignore a character's history like that inside of a movie where it really is one of the major parts of the story. It's like you said, it's a wasted opportunity. It's wasted time in the movie itself. And
like, because we never get to dive into the psyche of Thomas Elliot, you lose a lot of the really like profoundly dark and disturbing things that the book has to offer. Like the line where Thomas Elliot tells Bruce, "After your parents died, I saw how happy you were." Like, that is just fucking bone chilling. Like, and there's nothing in this movie that ever happens that hits that emotional level of like just something that humanly inhuman. It's just you lose so much, and even like and again, like if you're not gonna make him Hush, then imagine if they just didn't have him in the movie. then we literally would have spent the whole movie trying to figure out who Hush was.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, at that point, we could have actually been like, okay, it's a straight on mystery at this point,
Yeah.
you know? Because, like you had said, and it's like what we agree on is when we watch, when we watch the Batman Gotham Week by Gaslight, it's like, okay, this is a straight mystery. Now we don't know who it is.
Yeah.
And what what I really like about that is because when I read the comic, I get an experience, and when I watch the movie, I get a similar but different satisfying or experience that both are really satisfying to that degree.
Yeah.
Now, when I read and watch Hush, I read Hush, and I'm like, that was a very good and satisfying experience. When I watch the Hush movie, I think, oh, why?
Right.
It's just.
And
That's it. Just why? And then, and also, real Dr. Venkman asked, so how did Riddler figure out Bruce is Batman? So one thing that that was both in the comic and the movie is that the Riddler, he was dying of a brain tumor, and he jumped into the Lazarus pit.
Yeah.
And when he was in the Lazarus pit, he had said he got the answer to every single question he ever had, including the conundrum of who was Batman. So it was literally as simple as jumping in the Lazarus pit to figure out Batman.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And then he ran with that.
Yeah. So yeah, that I mean, and again, like I don't actually take issue with that in general. Like the Lazarus pit is a crazy thing, and like we've seen the way that people act when they come out of it, and like I mean, hell, even right now in comics, we have a Bruce Wayne who looks like he's 25 and basically has Captain America powers because in Endgame he died and was resurrected through a Lazarus pit. So I'm willing to give the Lazarus pit a little bit of leeway in terms of what happens when people go in there. But like at the same time, he's the Riddler, and like if he can't just figure it out on his own, that kind of is one of the reasons why I feel like the end of Hush, even the book, it's not its strongest suit. You know what I mean? But yeah, so like he figures it out through the Lazarus pit, which I'm fine with. But like, man, okay, it's a slightly different thing. I don't know. I'm very, very torn because again, I feel like in a different story, this could have worked better, but it's still such a last minute tack on of like, oh, it's a simple explanation. You know what I mean? Like it very much feels like, even in the book, it kind of feels like when Loeb gets to that point in the book, he's like, oh shit, yeah, I've got to explain this. Here's the fastest way to do it. Which like the book is so filled with so many good things, like you kind of let it go. But the movie's not. So you're just like, oh, like you changed so many good things from the book, but you kept that, like on the weaker elements. And again, okay, so this kind of goes back to what I was saying before, but as much as I think that it's actually kind of cool, the fight between Batman and Riddler and stuff, and I think that like in a different story it could have worked, the moment you make Riddler a character who can go toe-to-toe with Batman, again, I feel like we're watching Tom King's Batman. Because like based on this movie coming out now and looking back and thinking about the production time, you know what story was probably going on right about the time this movie got greenlit? War of Jokes and Riddles.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
right about this time.
So I can't help but feel like there's so much about what was at the time a critically acclaimed run of Batman that leaks into this movie that just kind of adds another level of just like demystifying bullshittery to it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I will say also, upon second viewing too of this movie, when it comes to the Riddler identity reveal, it's really interesting how obvious they try to make you look at Thomas Elliot, and then even going so far as referring to, because I reread the book and I didn't come across the line where they continuously refer to the Riddler as a C-list villain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, at what point in time was the Riddler ever what I would consider a C-list villain, as he is extremely intelligent and has, even put Batman through the ringer a few times with some of his puzzles.
Yeah. I think it's more a matter of, especially at the time Hush is made, like comics were trying to be more serious for sure.
Yeah.
And Riddler is a very jokey kind, like you can do cool and intense things with Riddler, but most people when they think of Riddler, even at the time when Hush was made, they either think of, well, most people now think of Jim Carrey as the Riddler, or people think of the Adam West Batman show Riddler, like like it's a very jokey character.
Yeah.
And very few
They
times
kind of
have we seen like a really good psychologically in-depth version, because even like in the Batman animated series, he traps them in a maze that is a game that's going to kill them, like that's dope and that's evil for sure, but it's not on the same level as like a Ra's al Ghul or a Joker or a Bane or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I
for
think
me,
it's more about the time the book's made.
yeah, and I could actually see that being a factor into it, of them going, "Oh, this is popular right now." But I mean, I would love to actually at some point sit down and talk with, the writers of the movie and just kind of be like, "At what point did you decide that, it was a good idea to change the Riddler into Hush?" And it's like, even though they gave him the Hush identity and stuff like that, they still went as far at the end to make it kind of silly in a way, because he still had a scar of a question mark on his head.
Yep.
And he had a question mark steel cane.
Yes. And again, that's, even though again, in Tom King's it's on his chest, I don't care. Like, you gave him the scar question mark, like, and it comes out of nowhere. Like, there's nothing
really
in this movie that sets up that, because also no, it doesn't really work. It doesn't work.
That we definitely agree on. Oh my god, yeah. To this day, I mean, probably 10 years from now, that's still going to be one of the most annoying factors. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to sit down and, think about this and not think about, say Gotham by Gaslight, and just consider how much more well done the twist was in that film. That just worked so well.
Yeah.
And here they just, you can tell, I mean, you can really tell it's something they wanted to do again.
Yes.
But just failed on every level possible with that reveal.
Yeah. Just don't work.
Mm-mm.
But I know that here in a minute we're going to want to start talking about some stuff other than changes, but real quick, I guess, what was your favorite change and what was your least favorite change?
Ooh, favorite and least favorite.
If you want, I can go first.
Yeah, you go first. I'm gonna have to think about that for a sec.
So it's a very little thing, but my favorite change in the movie, which is crazy because I kind of was under the impression this would be my least favorite thing. The few appearances of Damian in this movie are fantastic.
Oh yes.
Because again, he has no place in the story, he has no function in the story, but him just showing up to give Batman a hard time every now and then is great.
I do love the dialogue that Damian has with Batman in that, where he's basically telling Batman to wrap it up.
Yes. And again,
not that he's not appreciative of his own existence.
Yes. But like I like it because if you're going to do it in this continuity, then Damian has to at least make an appearance because he's a firmly established part of this universe and the Bat family, and this is something that would affect him, So he has to be there, but they didn't shoehorn him into the proper story and try to like give him his own story and stuff like that, like they've done in so many of the previous, type things. So I thought that it was very well done. I thought that was very, very well executed, and it was the right amount. It was just enough for us to get the point and feel that he's there without overstaying his welcome or making him into like the unlikable version of Damian.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was even a point when I was rereading the Hush comic book, that I come across Tim Drake inside the book and stuff like that, and I'm just like, well, I mean, they already did it for Judas Contract. Why not just have Damien and Tim Drake's part for the film.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been interesting, especially the the scene with where it's Catwoman and the Huntress, or in this case it would have been Batgirl because she got hit with Scarecrow's fear toxin and they're trying to get him, and then Hush comes up behind Robin and just pops him in the face.
Right. Yeah, could have been cool.
Could have been cool. Could have been awesome.
Oh, and
your least favorite.
my least favorite, yeah. So this is also like a weird, strange thing, but and I actually already kind of touched on it, but like, man, you know what? This actually, no, that doesn't count because that's not a change to Hush. That's a change to their continuity, but it's not even a real change, so I'll skip that. Probably, I don't know. Actually, you know what? We've probably already gone over my least favorite thing. I've got a lot of least favorite things or least favorite changes. So yeah, I'm sure we've already gone over my least favorite. It's probably just like the writing in general, like focusing more, even though I think it works well, I think focusing more on the Batman-Catwoman story is a real detriment to trying to tell the Hush story. Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day, it makes it impossible to make the characters the way they should be for that story, or to even have the story play out in an emotionally satisfying way like it does in the comic.
Yeah. That's definitely true. For me, if I had to say one positive, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it my most favorite because it's really hard to pick out something that I liked so much as a change to the story, because like really things I liked about it were relatively minor. And don't really have too much impact on it. If I had to say anything, I would say maybe just the opening scene at the party with Bruce and Selena to better establish their story. I think would probably be my most favorite change. As far as
very well written scene, like I said, that scene really works on its own.
Yes, absolutely. And it was great. I thought it was a great way to start the movie.
Yeah, and it even works in context of the story they're trying to tell in this movie. It really does. Like, I do have to give them credit that, like, when they decided to, even though I don't like the fact that they made the change to that being the focus, when they did make that the focus, those scenes are very well handled and executed.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as my least favorite, I mean, again, it's just really hard to pinpoint an exact part of the film that really screams out specifically to me, because when I think about the reveal of Hush, I also think about the mishandling of Thomas Elliot and all this and that. So
it's like a cumulative effect.
Exactly. But yeah, I probably, if I'm really gonna get down into the nitpick part of it, I'll say I think Thomas Elliot was the biggest dropped ball of the film.
Okay.
Because missing his story from the film is one of the factors that really drove the comic book once the reveal happened. Yeah. And because it's just missing here, it kind of just sets the tone for the remainder of the movie. Now, from here on out, anytime I watch it, I know that Thomas is an inconsequential character at this point. He serves no function to the story anymore. Therefore, he serves no function to this movie.
Yep. Not at all. It's just killing time, essentially. Yeah. So yeah, we've been going for a while now. So I know we're probably going to need to be wrapping it up before too much longer. But there were a couple other things that I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Just in terms of just overall. So things that I guess, like, let's just go through our other nitpicks or complaints that we haven't aired yet, because obviously I think you can tell. I don't necessarily think that this is like an unwatchable movie, and I think that if you've never read Hush, you could probably watch this movie and enjoy it just fine. Or if you're not like a big Batman fan or know much about the continuity, or if you're just not that invested, like, I don't think that this is a bad movie. It's a bad adaptation for damn sure, and it's not a great movie. But it's not unwatchable, and it's not a piece of garbage. Like, the movie holds up fine on its own. There's just too much that we're already aware of going into it. Like, we can't view it on its own as its own thing, because it's not. It's an adaptation that's drawing from current pop culture zeitgeist and books from 10 years ago and like everything in between. So like it's not an unwatchable movie, but in terms of it being a movie, they're not an adaptation, but just a movie on its own, there are still some legitimate problems.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, if I had to call this movie anything, I would say if there's nothing on TV, make a bowl of popcorn, throw it in the background while you make YouTube videos.
Yeah, or something, you know.
I don't know.
Like, you know, it's but yeah, so like
it's something I will watch again. I'll say that.
You know, I'm sure I will, but I tried to watch it again. Like I watched it when it first came out, and then I was going to watch it again last night to do this video, and man, it was a slog to get through it that second time. Maybe when a little more time has passed, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
it'll be a little easier, but man.
Oh yeah, which definitely actually reminds me of one of the things I have. One of the issues I have with the movie, the pacing is awful in this movie. Like, I mean, it's only like what, like a 98-minute movie or something like that. And I mean, this thing almost feels like I'm sitting through the 3-hour cut of BVS.
Yeah, like it drags at a snail's pace. And again, that's one of those things of like, once you fundamentally change so much about the story, you also lose any semblance of the structure of that story. And Hush, like, is very well structured as a story.
Yeah.
Like, the way that it's paced and that it like doles out information and action sequences is perfect for what it is. And this movie does not understand pacing whatsoever. But also, I think part of that goes back to the fact that now this isn't really a mystery anymore. It's a love story with a mystery in it. So you're going at more of the pace of a love story than a mystery or an action story. And it's really a detriment to the movie, for sure.
It definitely hurts the movie in the long run. And like, you know, even the way it's set up in terms of, you know, like the movie's broken up into its three basic parts, into its 3-act structure with the progression of the story, in that every time one element of the story ends, there's a fade to black.
Yeah.
And that what that tells me is, okay, they just adapted the first part of the story, which this movie almost feels like, I would say, because of that, it makes it feel like it was 3 20-minute shorts crammed together.
Yep.
And you know,
very episodic.
Because the fade to black portion, as far as I remember, from what my mind was picking up, did not happen anywhere else in the movie. It was really only after those sections and scenes wrapped up. And because of that, you know, that for me, that was one of the reasons why it did feel so long, is because in a way I almost felt like I just sat through 3 episodes of a 20-minute animated series.
Yeah. It definitely felt more like a mini series or something like that than a movie while you're watching it. So yeah, the pacing is pretty jacked up. And again, yeah, that's, man, it feels long. And like, it also just, the transitions are really bizarre. Like when they go from like an action scene or a scene that's supposed to be dark into a scene that's supposed to be emotional or kind of funny, like the transitions are literally just like, it's just so abrupt. There's not a transition. It's just like, this ends and now this begins.
Yeah.
And you don't get a sense of flow that you need for a movie to really work, you know? It's just like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and that's kind of just all of it.
Yeah. Like one scene that comes to mind at this point is, the point where Bane's already been captured. He's been taken back to Arkham, and it's that time that Batman decides he's going to go and talk to Bane, like he went to go talk to Killer Croc. Now in the comic, he just went to talk. He went to Arkham and talked to Killer Croc, right?
Yeah.
But in the movie, he's sitting down and he's talking to Amanda Waller for about 5 minutes.
Yep.
It's like, why did that need to be in there? Because like you just wanted to connect Bane to Task Force X for some reason.
Yeah,
that's what I got from it, and I'm just kind of like, it didn't really need to be there. It was scenes like that where I'm just kind of like,
yeah,
it just broke up the movie in a very bad way that just drug out that Arkham scene longer than it needed to be.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I've only heard vague rumors about this, so it's probably not true. But I've heard vague rumors that the next Batman movie they're going to be doing in animation is they're going to adapt I Am Suicide. Like from the Tom King run. I've heard rumors that that's the next thing that they want to do.
Oh
Which
boy.
would make that Amanda Waller scene and using Bane and all that stuff. It would make that stuff and focusing more on the Catwoman Batman stuff now, like that would make sense. God, I hope that's not what happens.
I hope not either, and that would actually even make that scene cheaper than it was in the movie, because it's like DC, didn't we learn from your live action films? Don't set up so abruptly in your movie. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't, it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel organic.
Right.
But
and you know what? That actually kind of leads me really well into like another big issue I have with the movie. Like the pacing is atrocious. Man, I don't know what it is, but the voice directing in this movie and just like the additional voice cast in this movie, you know what? No, even more so than that, the sound in this movie is awful.
The sound design and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, not just the sound design, but from every level. So, like, okay, I realized why I don't like Nightwing as much in this movie. It's because they wrote him as a completely different character. Like, it is the same actor playing it, but it's a completely different character, and that actor can't play the version of the character they're now writing Nightwing as. So, I understand that's part of casting, but it goes into my whole, like, audio thing, So, I'm lumping it in there. There's also a bunch of new characters who I don't care for their voice actors at all. I've been on record for a while saying that I don't particularly like Jason O'Mara as Batman, but if they're moving towards a Tom King Batman, then he's perfect because he's a fucking robot.
I will say I actually kind of like Jason O'Mara as Batman for the New 52 world and stuff. It works for me.
I was fine with it for a while, but by this point, I'm tired of it. Like, you
want to hear somebody else in the role?
Yeah, but even beyond those things, like, the sound design and the sound mixing in the movie is freaking atrocious. Like, whenever I watched this movie on I watched the Blu-ray of it. In order for, so like when I first started watching it, I turned it up loud enough I could hear people talk, and when I did, all my little like knickknacks and doodads around my TV started shaking and fell over every time music came on. And then like if you turn it down so that the music is audible, then you cannot hear anything anyone is saying. So I had to watch the whole movie with subtitles on the first time I watched it because the music was so ear-piercingly loud that like, I was worried stuff was going to fall off the wall if I could hear them talk and then the music came on. Like, it is one of the worst sound mixes and sound designs for one of these DC animated movies I've ever seen. There are scenes where two characters are talking and their voices are coming from the same source, like in terms of the sound mixing, you know what I mean? And also where like, there are also takes in the movie where like there are two people talking in a room where like one of them kind of has a little bit of reverb on them. You can tell they were recorded in different places. Like the sound mixing in this movie is real bad, like real bad. Like, did they get someone's cousin to do the sound mixing on this movie? Like, was someone paid money for this job?
Because, can they get the money back?
Yeah, can you get the money back?
Way to quote Kevin Smith. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even realize that's what I was doing when I went into it. Until about halfway through, I was like, "Oh, that's what I'm doing." Okay, let's go.
Yeah, no, that was taken from a night of Kevin Smith during his. He's telling the story about the death of Superman Lives. Yeah, that's what he was telling the guy. Like, read the script. He was like, who wrote the script? Is it somebody's like fucking cousin or something? It's like, did you pay this dude? Can you get the money back?
Right. Yeah, I totally forgot what I was referencing as I was doing it, but yeah.
By the way, if you've never seen A Night at Kevin Smith, I recommend you go on YouTube. You can rent it, go on Vudu, you can buy it. It's like $10. It's 4 hours of just Kevin Smith being Kevin Smith, and it is amazing.
It's pretty awesome, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, like that was one of my other big complaints. Like the pacing's awful, the sound mixing is really bad, really bad. There's just a lot of audio problems. It's weird because, like,
Mhm.
yeah, oh, the direct, no, almost everything from a technical aspect of this movie falls short. Some more than others.
Mhm.
Like the directing in general for like the visuals and the shots isn't awful all the time, but there are some scenes where it's really bad too.
That is true. That is definitely true.
But you know, all the fight scenes look pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, when it came to the action, I had no qualms. I mean, it was just like I know you had said the final Hush slash Riddler slash Batman fight, you really liked it,
But it
and
was cool. Like
you
I
know,
dug it.
and I will say I definitely enjoyed it slightly more in my second viewing, in terms of that fight scene because I know because the first time I watched it, the change in the character just caught me off guard so
Yeah.
much that I was way too jarred to even really enjoy the fight. I'm just sitting there explaining to my wife why it was such a bad reveal. While she
Yeah.
was just like, oh, while she was just sitting there, like, on her phone, like, yeah, okay.
Well, probably another reason that wasn't an issue for me is I probably about 15 minutes before that, as we're like leading up to the climax of the movie, I'm watching the movie and I didn't know the end, but someone had already told me they changed who the main villain was. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, and I'm
Oh, so
watching
you're
it.
already like mentally preparing for or something.
Well, it was more just like I wasn't even really thinking about it that much, but like as we were getting close to the end, I was like, okay, well, I guess they're about like we're pretty close to when they're gonna show who the villain is. It's like, and just like casually, I was just like, guess we're getting close to that point. You know, they're probably just gonna make it the fucking Riddler all the way.
Oh, so you thought you pretty much had an inkling that it could have been Riddler
I wasn't
right away.
serious, but like in
Oh,
my head, I was
so in your head you said it as a joke.
almost where I was like, it's the laziest thing you could do.
And then they did it.
And then they did it. So then when I got to the fight scene and the fight scene was actually pretty well done, I was like, well, okay. I guess they put effort into it somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's something. I mean, they made a change and they ran with it. I will say that. At least they didn't try to backtrack it, like
Nope.
like a post-credit scene on the movie with like the real Hush standing
Yeah.
at the thing
Like,
or something like that.
yeah, they didn't pull an Iron Man 3 on us or anything like that, but like they committed to the bit, which I do at least respect. You made the choice to go there and you stuck to your guns.
Ground. Yep. They stood their ground. They made the change. Okay. Moving on.
Yep.
Good God, that was such a terrible. And also like one of the things that I was just kind of like, why change? Also was when it came to who Clayface was playing, like who he was pretending to be. Like, 'cause at first, Clay, like in the movie, Clayface was pretending to be the Riddler, which is when the reveal actually happened. And then, but I kind of felt like, I felt like there was definitely that element missing when he was pretending to be Jason Todd.
Yeah, and again, like, it does suck that they lost that. I have no idea how they could have fit that into this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because again, like, and there is at least one. Before we're done with this, I do want to talk about my least favorite moment in the movie. But like, kind of my ultimate like thesis on this movie is that like, or not thesis, but like this should have been done like the Dark Knight Returns movie.
Mm-hmm.
This should have been a two-part, hour and a half each movie that's done in its own continuity with a different creative team than you usually have, with a new voice cast doing everybody. Like that's what Hush needed to be.
Right.
And if it's not that, it was going to come up short no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Hush is too big and too sprawling and has too many moving parts to do it in a 90-minute movie. It's an impossibility.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, and I was actually surprised they were saying they were going to try to do it in one swing. because like from what the DC animation, the WB DC animation departments told me is that they learned their lesson a long time ago not to fit such a massive story into one movie, especially after way back when getting all the criticism for the Superman Doomsday movie, which when they decided to try to adapt Death of Superman again, they split it into 2 films.
Yes. And did better, mostly on the first half, but they did better.
Yep, they did. They definitely did do better. And then, of course, like you said, Dark Knight Returns, which was a very good adaptation. I really like that. Those 2 movies split together.
Yeah, it's so weird that we live in a movie where a 45-page story like The Killing Joke, they're like, well, it has to be a feature film.
There's another bad adaptation for you.
Yeah, but a sprawling epic story involving all the most iconic of Batman's rogues gallery with all his Bat family and all these other characters. Oh yeah, but that only needs to be a 90-minute movie. Those 2 decisions are mind-boggling.
Well, never forget with The Killing Joke what the real reasoning was for adding that extra 30 minutes to the movie. Yeah. It's so they could shamelessly put it in theaters for a few weeks.
Well, not only that, I don't know if you remember, but probably a year or 2 before they announced the Killing Joke feature film, they had started talking about doing Killing Joke as a direct-to-DVD short film. And fans were outraged. They were like, no, this needs to be a rated R feature-length film.
I didn't hear about the outrage of just talking about, because I would have appreciated it more if it was just the straight-up 45-minute Killing Joke.
Well, see, the thing is, though, what's nice is you do have that movie. You just don't watch the first half of the movie.
Yeah, just skip it all the way through. Just be like, we can just forget all that other stuff.
This
is where the movie starts.
Yeah, because the Killing Joke part of that movie is actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, I actually rather liked that portion of the movie. It's just that first half just made it so. And then, of course, also one thing about the first half that I didn't care for too much was, as much as we love Bruce Timm, as much as we love this guy, he ships Batman Batgirl way too hard.
But even he doesn't, though. Have you actually watched any of the interviews with him talking about it?
No. Who was it then? Because I could have sworn I watched something where he was he was the guy that really shipped those characters together.
Oh, no, he's the guy who put them together, and he's the guy who keeps pushing that. But everyone has this weird idea that it's because he likes the idea of them being together, and it's actually the opposite. That's the whole reason why he added it to the Batman animated series, to the Batman Beyond continuity.
Yeah,
is because it's one of the few ways in which Bruce can be weak as a man, and it actually says nothing about him as Batman. It's a way to make him be fallible. According to Bruce Timm, he never intended it to be a positive thing. It was always meant to be something that was wrong.
About how Batman breaks the bro code on every level?
Essentially, well, not even beyond that, just the fact, if, let's say, Dick Grayson had nothing to do with it, and Barbara was even Batman's age, the fact that they are partners who are in the field together, who develop that kind of relationship, is wrong. It's inappropriate. And then on every other level, it's made even more wrong and more inappropriate. You can't have Batman murder someone because it ruins Batman. Right. But having Batman as a man who's also established as a playboy, who likes beautiful women, who is also fighting next to this badass, strong, confident woman who's probably one of the most in not just engaging, but one of the strongest people he knows. To me, that kind of human weakness is acceptable in a character like Batman. Because here's the thing: if you're okay with Batman banging Talia al Ghul, then she's a villain, So if Batman's gonna bang villains, and that's Batman's weakness is women. It always has been. They make jokes about it. So, if Batman's going to fall for Talia and Catwoman, Barbara Gordon is an amazing woman. So to say that Batman, that's something that would never happen is ridiculous, because it happens with men and women who are partners in the military and who are in cops and other fire, men and women who are in high stress, action situations, form these bonds together. There are times in real life where it crosses a line it shouldn't cross. And that's the kind of story Bruce Timm wanted to tell, and about how that would inevitably destroy everything. Now, whether you like that or not, as part of a Batman story, the truth of the matter is that Bruce Timm does not think Batman and Batgirl should be together. But he also needed a way to destroy the Bat family to make the Batman Beyond universe happen.
Okay, you know, I never thought about it in that way before. Because like
sorry, that was a whole tangent that should have been its own video, but
that's actually a very interesting. You should actually do a video just on that itself, or just we'll snip this part out and I'll, you know, you can put that up as a video on your channel or something.
Right on. Sorry, I've had that conversation a lot, so I'm really invested in it because it's always one of those things that I always actually really liked, is the idea that, because for me it humanizes Batman so much.
It's definitely something I've never thought about in that regard before, because all I see is Batman breaking the bro code.
Yeah, not just on Dick Grayson, but also on Jim Gordon.
Jim Gordon, yeah. It's just like, hey, Jim, this is your only daughter, right? Don't worry.
Yeah,
I'll take care of her.
And again, just the one last thing I'm going to say, because I know someone will mention it in the comments about the age difference. It's like, yeah, the age difference is a thing, except for the fact that by the time that Batman and Barbara hook up, like, Barbara's in her mid to late 20s. Like, those relationships happen all the time in the real world. People don't look twice at it. It's only because you know the characters and their history and stuff like that. But, like, even to that effect, like, it's one of those things that because it's Batman, it seems more weird and bad than it would be if it was something that happened in the real world. Like, people would think it was weird, but most people would just accept it and move on. It's like, no, they legitimately are in love with each other or attracted to each other or whatever, you know? It's just one of those things. I don't know. Anyway, back to Batman Hush.
Back to Batman Hush. And as, what is it? As Real Dr. Venkman points out, this is the longest closing segment ever.
I know, right? Well, anyway... do you want to just go ahead and maybe, because there's one other thing I had to mention about Batman Hush that I disliked, and if you want to like put your number one most hated thing or something like that, then yeah, we can move into our closing statements or whatever.
All right, go for it, brah.
Okay, so my least favorite scene in this movie. There's a lot of scenes in this movie that don't work. The scene where Commissioner Gordon pulls Batman off of Joker might be the worst scene in this DC animated continuity. The acting in it is so bad. The guy that got voicing Commissioner Gordon, I can't remember if they've had him before, but he is so wrong for the role. And he is just, it's like, no, Batman, stop. Like, it sounds like he's doing a thing from like the Superman Fleischer cartoons or something. Like, I don't understand that scene, and the fact that they change it to him instead of Catwoman is so baffling.
It was definitely odd, I would say.
It is so off-putting. And also, by the way, the animation in that scene also gets pretty bad too. Gordon's run cycle as he runs up on the scene where Batman is fucking Looney Tunes. So no, I'm sorry. I just had to mention it. It's the smallest thing, but that scene, I don't know why, it just like gets under my skin in a way that nothing else does. It's like, oh yeah, the Riddler is now Hush. Like, that should really piss me off. But no, that scene with Gordon and Batman, that's what really fucking ticks me off. I guess it's because it should be good. Because like, if you're going to put Gordon in that scene instead of Catwoman, it's because you want to play on the Batman-Gordon relationship, and that scene wastes all, like so many things in this movie, it makes a change that should service the story well, and then waste and squanders all the opportunities that change provides. Tied in with like bad voice acting and sound design and crappy animation, and like, no. I get the same feeling watching that scene as I do whenever I see Batman slide down the tail of a dinosaur to fight Mr. Freeze. Like,
yeah, there you go. Yeah, the Commissioner Gordon, for me specifically, the voice actor, yeah, it definitely stood out as odd. And I'm just like, you know, you have Commissioner Gordon. I was like, why do you sound like you're doing your test audio?
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Or even like you said, or like a Fleischer cartoon, or even like, you know, Commissioner Gordon a little bit, and like, you know, Batman and Robin, where he's a little more like, Batman, there's a new villain in Gotham.
Oh, no, yeah. You imagine that the actor was in the booth going, no, Batman, you have to stop. You can't do this. And they're like, all right, good. We're moving on. And he's like, you're going to use that? Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's perfect. It's gold. Moving on.
It's like, but I was just testing the mic.
Beautiful, babe. Don't change a thing. You're golden. You're gonna get an Oscar for this one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, good Lord, just shoot me now.
So, other than anything that you've mentioned before, was there any other thing that we hadn't got to that really just irked you?
Man, I think we cover. I mean, for me, I feel like I've kind of said everything I needed to say about it. It's just overall, if I'm going to wrap it up in a little bow, it is a failed adaptation of an excellent Batman story, and I'm disappointed. I'm sad. I can see why certain changes were made because they wanted to fit it into their New 52 animated universe continuity. Like you had said, it's like having James Gordon stop Batman from killing the Joker as opposed to Catwoman, because again, they changed Catwoman as a character to a degree by making her okay with just let him die.
Yeah.
It's like,
screw it.
Let him die. It's why, like, especially at the end of the movie where it was her that cut the line.
Yeah.
That was holding him from falling into Hush from aka Riddler from falling into the fire and dying.
Yeah.
So which makes me kind of be like, okay, well now in this new 52 animated continuity universe, you can't do a War of the Jokes and Riddles animated movie because the Riddler is dead.
Yeah.
And now if you try to bring him back at all, it's just gonna screw everything up and it's gonna make me hate this movie even more.
Yeah, there's no way to bring Riddler back from dropping into a vat of like
fire.
Yeah. Like, no, you're done with that character. Which is kind of bizarre because, like, again, in the book Hush, while they keep calling Riddler a C-list villain, part of the thing about that book is that Riddler's not really a C-list villain. And this movie, the opinion very much is that, no, Riddler is a C-list villain, so we're going to kill him. That way we don't have to deal with him anymore.
And that was kind of the thing I was getting at. I was like, it was like, really to the animators and the people writing the movie, do you really put the Riddler on the same floor as, say, Condiment Man?
Yeah, Condiment King.
Or Kite Man.
Yeah.
Or Condiment King, yeah. It's like Condiment King, Kite Man. It's like, is he really that level of a character to you?
Yeah, like, hell, man, yeah. Kite Man. That's who should have been Hush. Kite Man should have been Hush.
And you know what? It would have fit with their whole let's Tom King it up a little bit. And just make Kite Man reveal himself and just be like, "Hey, Batman! All those times you tracked me down just to beat the ever living shit out of me." And Tom King, who's laughing now?
Little did you know, I followed you with my kite and discovered who you are. Yeah, but no, yeah, like pretty much same. Yeah, like it fails on every level as an adaptation, and the movie that it is on its own is riddled with too many problems to really stand on its own as a solid movie. Watchable, yeah, good for killing some time, sure, but nothing special. I think the best thing that can be said about this movie is that it's bad enough that in 10 years we might get a proper adaptation like we did with, another shot at it like we did with Superman Doomsday and then the Death of Superman, Reign of the Superman. Like, it's that bad that certainly they'll try to do it again down the line and hopefully it'll be better.
Yep, and that is and at this point, that's the best that we can hope for, is that, a couple of years down the line, just take another stab at it, and hopefully they learn their lesson, they listen to the criticisms, and don't try to just, shrug it off as just, that's just haters.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, I'm satisfied. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and if there's nothing else, we'll go into closing statements. So again, this has been Joe's Geek Show teaming up with NERDSCUM talking about the Batman Hush animated movie and how much we just don't like it. So as far as NERDSCUM goes, I've actually put a link to his channel in the description down below, so I suggest you go check him out. He makes excellent content on comic books. He's got a great Cowboy Bebop retrospective that he's been putting out, which has been just absolutely fantastic. I just wish more people would go watch it, just because of how well you handle it. And overall, you know, he's just a cool dude that he's cool to talk to.
Thank you, sir.
I'll let you do your shameless promotion.
Well, yeah, channel's called NERDSCUM. Yeah, like you said, we got the Cowboy Bebop retrospect going, where I am doing the stupid thing of covering every episode of Cowboy Bebop and the movie. So we should have the next one coming out here in another week or so on session 11. Other than that, like, yeah, we've got a series that I'm going to get kicked off pretty soon called The Batman I Believe In, which will just be my Batman series where I just talk about everything Batman. But yeah, make sure and check out the channel. Really appreciate it. And from there, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter just as NERDSCUM or Corey Ari, and follow me there for updates on all my other content. Thank you guys.
And holy crap, that's how you pronounce your last name, Ari. Yeah. For the longest time, I've just been saying Air.
It's okay. Most people do. They say either air or R. Like they're like Corey R. Like I've got a pirate and an eye patch, you know, or a pirate. Like I am a pirate with a parrot and an eye patch.
Oh, interesting. Well, in that case, do you know what a pirate's favorite letter is?
Tell me.
No, take a stab at it.
R.
Wrong. The C.
Fun. Great. Yep. That's how we're going to end our video. Okay.
And that is my stupid dad joke for the day. And as always, I am Joe's Geek Show. And if you have not or would like to subscribe, I suggest you do so. Don't forget to thumbs up this video. And I will catch you all in the next one. All right. Take care. Have a great day. And as always, stay geeky. That's where you're supposed to say nerds come out.
You did the thing.
You did the thing, but you didn't say it. You have to say it for the camera.
Nerds come out.
And cut.